I came back home only to grab my blood pressure pills, but I heard my son say one sentence that froze my whole body. My name is Sandra Mayfield. I am 66 years old. For most of my life, people knew me as an investigator for the Internal Revenue Service. I spent 3 decades reading numbers, reading paper trails, reading people who did not want to be read. I looked into their eyes and their balance sheets and learned one simple truth. People lie. Patterns do not. That afternoon, I was not an investigator. I was just a retired widow sitting on my worn blue sofa holding a golden envelope in my hands, the kind travel agencies use when they want you to feel rich for a second. My son, Ethan, stood in front of me with that wide smile he had as a little boy. Only now it felt stretched, like someone had pulled it too tight. "Mom," he said, almost clapping his hands together, "you have worked hard your whole life. You raised me alone. You never took a real vacation. So Vanessa and I decided, it is your turn." He told me it was a 7-day cruise through the Caribbean. Sunny islands, warm water, a balcony cabin with ocean view, the trip other people posted about online while I was still working late on audits and eating cold leftovers at my desk. I opened the envelope and saw the tickets. My eyes stung. I am not ashamed to say that. "Ethan," I whispered. "This must have cost a fortune." He stepped closer and kissed my forehead the way he did when he wanted something as a teenager. "Your happiness is priceless," he said in that soft voice. "You deserve this and more. You need to relax, get away from stress, breathe sea air." His words were sweet. His jaw was not. There was a small twitch near his left ear. His right hand kept rubbing his thumb over his fingers. Classic tell of anxiety. I had seen it across small desks from businessmen who said their numbers were clean. His smile was warm, but his eyes shifted a breath too fast. A thin pulse tightened behind my ribs, the kind that rises when something true hides behind something polite. I pushed the feeling down for a moment. I wanted to believe. It is a very human thing. We spend our youth wanting love. We spend our middle age wanting stability. At my age, what we really want is simple. We want to believe our sacrifices meant something. "When do I leave?" I asked. "The day after tomorrow," Ethan said. "Everything is arranged. You only have to show up at the port." Vanessa handled all the details. He walked through the house after that, touching things he never looked at anymore. The photo of his father in uniform, the ceramic bowl his grandmother had carried from Ohio. He said it made him happy to do something for me. His words were right. His eyes were wrong. They slid away just a second too fast whenever I held his gaze. After he left, the house was quiet again. I sat at the kitchen table with the tickets in front of me. The sunlight came through the blinds in long lines across the worn wood. The kettle whistled softly on the stove. My heart felt heavy and light at the same time. There is a kind of tired that does not belong to the body. It sits in the soul. It comes from years of holding everyone else together. Still, a small part of me felt like a girl again planning a trip. I even took out my old suitcase, the brown one with the missing wheel. I ironed blouses I had not worn since my retirement party. Yet as I folded my clothes, that quiet alarm kept ringing. Ethan had been distant for months. Short visits, shorter calls, text messages that said he was busy, that work was crazy, that he would drop by soon. I knew he had money problems. I did not know the details. He never wanted to talk about numbers with me. That fact alone had always bothered me. Men who are proud of their finances will talk forever. Men who are drowning avoid every question. I told myself I was overthinking it. Old habits nudged me. Years of reading people had trained my body to tighten when stories did not match eyes. I placed my blood pressure pills on the bathroom counter so I would not forget them. The morning of departure, I woke before the alarm. Old habits are like that. The house felt different, not in any mystical way, just in the quiet way a house feels when it knows someone is about to leave. I showered, I made coffee, I double-checked my documents. I looked at the framed picture of Ethan at age 8 with missing front teeth. I touched the glass with one finger. You were worth everything I said softly, every overtime, every late night, every lonely holiday. I locked the front door and dragged my suitcase down the small concrete steps. The taxi was already there. The driver helped me with the bag, asked if I was going somewhere nice. I said yes and tried to smile. Halfway down the street, I felt a small pinch in my chest. Not fear, memory. I had left my blood pressure pills on the bathroom counter. "Sir," I said, "I am so sorry. Could we turn back for 1 minute? I forgot my medication. The crews can leave without me. My heart cannot." He laughed kindly, turned the car around, pulled up in front of my house again. I got out and told him I would be quick. I opened the front door with the spare key I always keep in my purse. I pushed it just enough to slip inside. The hallway smelled like lemon cleaner. I had scrubbed the floors the night before. I was about to head toward the bathroom when I heard a sound I did not expect. Ethan's voice. He should have been at work. Instead, he was standing in my living room. I could see his shadow against the wall. His back was to me. He was on the phone. I froze in the doorway. Old training kicked in. When you want the truth, you do not announce your presence. You listen. "Don't worry, babe," he said. His tone was calm, flat, the voice he used when closing a deal. It is a one-way ticket. Once she is at sea, accidents happen all the time. The air thinned. My fingers went numb against the wall. Even the refrigerator hum sounded sharp, as if the house itself was listening with me. I could hear the clock in the kitchen tick. I could hear the refrigerator hum. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. The words rolled around in my head. One-way ticket. Accidents happen. Vanessa's voice came faintly through the phone, tinny and sharp. I could not make out every word, but I heard enough. "Yes," Ethan continued. "The insurance is for $200,000. The house sells easily for $3,000. That clears everything. Then we start fresh. Insurance, house, clears everything." I had heard the same tone from men who used corporate assets like chips at a casino. They always forgot one thing. Numbers look clean. Blood never does. My throat tightened, but I did not make a sound. I pressed my back against the wall just out of sight. Ethan paced slowly across the living room. His shoes made soft sounds on the carpet. "She trusts me completely," he said. "She thinks this is about rest. Old people fall on cruises all the time. Nobody will ask questions. We will cry. We will act devastated. It will be fine." For a second, the room spun slightly. I reached for the door frame to steady myself. This was my son, the baby I had rocked to sleep after his father died, the teenager I had driven to baseball games, the man whose first apartment I had helped paint, the same mouth that had once said, "I love you." Mom was now planning my death like a business move. My throat closed, but the fear did not shake me. It crystallized. Every breath felt cold and exact, as if the truth had snapped my spine straight. Cold, sharp, merciless clarity. My instincts had been right. The numbers had never added up. The distance, the broken eye contact, the forced smile. My brain clicked into the mode I had thought I left behind when I retired. Assess, verify, plan. I backed out quietly and pulled the door almost shut. I stood on my own porch looking at the peeling paint on the railings and took a long breath. I could have run into the living room and screamed. I could have hit him with the nearest lamp. I could have called his name and watched him scramble for another lie. That is what many parents do when they are hurt. They charge into the fire without a plan. I had spent 30 years watching what happens when people act from emotion only. They lose more than they save. I opened the door again, this time with noise. I let it slam gently against the stopper and called out, "Ethan, are you still here?" His voice jumped an octave. "Mom, I thought you left already." "I forgot my pills," I said. "These old arteries still need some help." He laughed, but there was a crack in the sound. I walked past the living room door without looking in too long. He was standing there with his phone in his hand, face a little too red, smile a little too wide. For the first time, I saw him not as my son, but as a man in a case file. I took my pills from the bathroom, slipped them into my purse, looked at myself in the mirror. The woman in the glass had gray hair pulled into a neat bun. Her eyes looked tired, but there was still steel in them. On the way out, Ethan hugged me. His arms around my shoulders felt lighter than usual, like he was already letting go. "Enjoy every minute, Mom," he said. "You deserve this. Just relax. Do not worry about anything." I stepped back and held his gaze for one long second. "Do not worry," I said softly. "I will not." In the taxi again, the driver asked if everything was all right. I told him yes. It was a lie and a truth at the same time. My heart hurt. My mind was clear. As the city passed by outside the window, I looked at the ticket in my hand. My son thought it was one way. He thought the ocean would take me quietly. He thought accidents come cheap for old women who live alone. I decided something very simple on that ride to the port. I pressed the ticket flat on my knee and watched the city blur past the taxi window. My son planned a voyage with no return. Fine, I would take the same path. But I would meet the ocean, standing, not falling. I would go as the woman I had once been every day, the woman who followed trails, the woman who turned other people's secrets into evidence, the woman who could look into a lie and see straight through to the fear behind it. My son wanted to clear his debts with my death. He was about to learn something I had never needed to say out loud. 66 years had taught me one rule. If someone writes your ending for you, you take back the pen before they finish the sentence. I sat in the taxi on the way to the port, but my mind was not on the road. My thoughts kept circling around a single question. How did my son become a man who could discuss my death so calmly? Pain rises slowly at my age, but clarity rises faster. I leaned back and let the memories come. I raised Ethan alone after his father died. I was 32. I had a son who could not sleep without hearing my heartbeat. We lived in a tiny apartment above a bakery. I worked nights filing tax documents and spent mornings packing Ethan's lunch. I taught him how to read the color of storm clouds and how to tie his shoes. I told him that life is hard, but truth makes the load lighter. He was a curious child with a gentle spirit. He collected rocks and believed every stray cat deserved a name. People often asked how I balanced work and motherhood. I did not. I survived one day at a time. I worked through exhaustion because I wanted him to feel safe. When I earned my first promotion, I bought him a model train. When I earned my second, I paid off the last medical bill from his father's illness. Every success I had felt like room for Ethan to stand in. Back then, he laughed easily. He told me everything. The girls he liked, the fights with his best friend, the tests he feared. He would sit on the kitchen counter and swing his feet while I cooked. Those days felt honest. They felt warm like sunlight on old carpet. If someone had told me that the same boy would one day weigh my life against his debts, I would have sworn it was impossible. The truth is simpler. People do not turn cruel in one night. They turn inch by inch, year by year. And most of the time, they do it while we are not watching. Ethan began to change 3 years ago. It started with small things, missed visits, short calls, promises he forgot. He used to tell me everything about his job. Then he stopped talking about work. When I asked how he was doing, he said he was fine. When I asked about his finances, he changed the subject. I saw the bills on his counter once hidden under a magazine. I did not confront him. I should have. I saw the first real crack when he borrowed $2,000 and said it was for a car repair. The next week, he posted a picture of a weekend trip with Vanessa. I pretended not to know. Then it became $5,000, then $10,000. The excuses were flimsy. My instincts could smell a lie before he finished the sentence. As an investigator, I spent years watching criminals trip over their own stories. Ethan had the same faults. He changed dates. He changed reasons. He forgot what he had said before. There was one night that still makes me smile despite everything. He came over with a new watch. I asked where he bought it. He said it was on sale at the pharmacy. a watch with diamonds, at a pharmacy. Anyone else would have laughed out loud. I simply nodded and said it looked nice. He exhaled in relief. His lies were always too small for the size of his fear. There is humor in that kind of panic. Vanessa was different. She never bothered hiding her contempt. Her insults came wrapped in polite smiles, the kind people call microaggressions, little cuts that sting more because they are disguised as courtesy. She once told me that my clothes were cozy in a nostalgic way. She said my cooking tasted comfortably old-fashioned. She said my neighborhood was cute for someone my age. She said my career choice was impressive considering the stress older minds face. She smiled sweetly while stabbing me with every word. I never confronted her. I did what mothers often do. I swallowed the hurt because I wanted peace for my son. I told myself it was not worth a fight. I told myself I was reading too much into it. But truth sits quietly until it cannot. Vanessa did not want a mother-in-law. She wanted a benefactor. I did not fit that role. The real shift came 6 months ago. Ethan stopped coming inside my house during visits. He would stand at the door and say he had a meeting. He would hug me quickly and keep his eyes on the driveway. He smelled faintly of stress, the kind that comes from debt collectors. I had seen that smell before in offices full of fear. I asked him if he needed help. He said no too quickly. One afternoon, he came by with Vanessa. She walked around the living room like a realtor. She touched walls. She looked at the baseboards. She asked how old the plumbing was. She asked if I had considered selling. She said the house had good bones, like she was describing a horse she wanted to buy. I watched Ethan avoid my eyes. That night, I lay awake and felt something shift inside me. The woman who raised a child alone could sense danger long before it arrived. My instincts whispered that something was moving under the surface, a shadow, a plan. I wanted to believe I was wrong, but belief is not a safety net. Truth is. After hearing Ethan on the phone that morning, the world sharpened. Every memory lined up like clues in an audit file. His recent distance, the money he borrowed, his forced smile, Vanessa's strange questions about my home, the sudden gift of a cruise, the one-way ticket, the talk of accidents. My heart hurt, but my mind tightened like a knot pulling closed. I knew what I had to do. I had lived too long to let fear kill me. I had survived widowhood. I had survived loneliness. I had survived years of unspoken burdens. I would survive this, too. I made a silent oath while the taxi rolled toward the port. I would find the reason behind Ethan's transformation. I would trace every lie back to its root. I would protect my own life with the same determination I once used to protect his. I arrived at the port an hour later. The ship towered above the water like a floating city. People were laughing and taking pictures. A couple argued about sunscreen. A child cried because the wind blew his hat away. The world looked normal. Mine did not. I checked my suitcase. I checked my documents. I checked the emergency contacts in my phone. 30 years of IRS training settled into my bones like muscle memory. On land, I had retired. On this ship, I was an investigator again, a woman with questions, a woman with purpose, a woman who refused to die for someone else's balance sheet. As I stepped onto the boarding ramp, the ocean breeze lifted the edge of my collar. The air smelled like salt and diesel fuel. I gripped the handrail and whispered to myself, I will find the truth, and I will find a way to live. Then I walked forward, not as a victim, but as a woman prepared to uncover every shadow hiding behind her son. I stepped onto the ship with a steady breath. The ocean air felt sharp, almost metallic, as if the wind itself wanted to warn me. People around me laughed and posed for pictures. Families argued gently about sunscreen and room keys. Life looked normal. My world was not. A tall man in a crisp white uniform approached. His posture was calm and his eyes carried the weight of someone who had seen too much at sea. "Good afternoon, ma'am. I am Captain Grant. Welcome aboard." His handshake was warm. His gaze was sharper than I expected. "Thank you, Captain," I said. "It is my first cruise." He nodded with a soft smile. "If you need anything, let my crew know. We take safety seriously." Safety. The word hit my ribs like a hard tap. If only he knew why I was here. I walked toward the elevators when a cheerful voice called out next to me. "Please tell me you are not one of those people who brought 12 outfits for a 7-day trip." I turned and met a woman with silver hair pinned in a stylish twist. She wore a bright scarf and carried a plate stacked with pastries. "I am Marjorie," she said, offering her free hand. "Widow, professional trouble magnet, and apparently unable to resist carbs." Her humor was warm and unexpected. I smiled despite myself. "I am Sandra, and I only packed 8 outfits." "Oh, thank God," she said. "I cannot be friends with people who pack light. They terrify me." We walked together toward the buffet. Marjorie talked like someone who had lived long enough to stop caring what anyone thought. "You know what I saw this morning?" she whispered at the salad bar. "A grown man arguing with his sister about who ruined the cranberry sauce. On a boat, surrounded by strangers. I live for these moments." Her eyes sparkled with mischief as she added, "Nothing bonds women faster than watching other families fall apart in public." I laughed. The sound felt strange and welcome. Comedy had always been a shield for me, but I had forgotten what it felt like when someone else held that shield for a moment. We found a table near the window with a view of the port. As we ate, I noticed a man standing near the railing outside. He wore a beige linen shirt and dark sunglasses. His posture was still, too still. His head tilted slightly in my direction, as if he was observing, not sightseeing. My pulse tightened. Marjorie followed my gaze. "Do you know him?" "No," I said. "But he seems to know me." She squinted. "He looks like someone who ironed that shirt for 15 straight minutes. That alone makes him suspicious." Her joke softened the tension, but the unease stayed. Linen shirt man moved only when I stood up. As I walked, he mirrored the timing, stepping toward the opposite side of the deck. He kept enough distance to appear casual, not enough to disappear from my sight. My mind sharpened. If Ethan hired someone, I would see signs. Predators always make small mistakes. I began slowing my steps to observe the ship. First the cameras. Small black domes mounted on ceilings. Every hallway had one. The elevators had 2. Even the dining area had coverage, though, with blind spots near the side walls. Second, the exits. I counted them without drawing attention. 4 stairwells, 2 emergency doors near the deck, 1 security checkpoint, third, the railings. I walked past them slowly, keeping my hands in view. They were polished steel, waist-high, smooth enough to slip on if someone pushed too hard. I stood there long enough to see how easy it would be for an accident to happen. A chill climbed my back. Marjorie joined me at the railing. "I adore this view," she said, placing her elbows on the steel. "It makes me feel small in a good way." "I feel small too," I said, but not in the same way. She turned her head and studied my face. Her voice softened. "You do not look like a woman excited for vacation." I looked at the endless blue water ahead of us. "I am here to stay alive," I said quietly. She nodded once. "Well," she said, lifting her chin, "you picked the right friend. I may look soft, but I have survived 3 husbands and a sister who thinks she is royalty." Her joke warmed me again, but the moment broke when a sharp cry erupted behind us. A teenager near the railing slipped on a wet patch of deck. He lost his balance, arms flailing, body tipping toward the open sea. His mother screamed. I moved before I thought. My hand shot out and grabbed his wrist. The momentum nearly pulled me forward, but I dug my heels into the boards and held tight. "Got you," I said, my voice steady but my heart racing. Crew members rushed over. The boy's mother sobbed and hugged him. When the boy finally stood upright, I exhaled slowly. The near fall replayed in my mind. A wet patch, a railing, a distraction, a perfect setup. My stomach clenched. This was not an accident to me. It was a demonstration, a reminder, a warning. Marjorie grabbed my arm. "Sandra, are you all right?" "Yes," I said, though my voice felt thin. Her eyes narrowed. "You saw something in that moment, Something you are not saying." I looked toward the deck where Linen Shirt Man now leaned casually against a post, pretending to scroll through his phone. But he was not scrolling. He was watching. A realization settled deep in my chest. Ethan wanted a death that looked effortless. A slip, a stumble, a fall, an accident that would break no one's heart because everyone would believe it could happen to anyone. I straightened my back. Not to me. Not while I was breathing. Captain Grant walked past us, stopping briefly. "Everything all right here?" "Yes," I said, "thanks to quick reflexes." He smiled. "Good. Enjoy your cruise, ma'am. Lots of smiling faces on board today." Smiling faces. Yes. Some smiled because they were happy. One smiled because he had a target. I glanced once more at Linen Shirt Man. He met my gaze. He held it a second too long. Then he smiled. The kind of smile that does not reach the eyes. The kind that says a clock has started ticking. I breathed in the salt air and whispered to myself, "If you are here for me, you will learn something. I am not easy prey." And for the first time since hearing Ethan's voice that morning, I felt my strength return. Not loud, not dramatic, but steady, determined, alive. The first night on the ship, I barely slept. The mattress was soft, the pillows were fine, but my mind kept running numbers and questions. I lay there in the dark, listening to the faint hum of the engines. It sounded like a distant clock counting down to something. At 6 a.m, I gave up on sleep and made coffee with the little machine in my cabin. Old habits kicked in. When something feels wrong, you do not wait for proof to walk to you. You go find it. I took my phone, opened the settings, and turned on automatic call recording. I had used similar tools when interviewing tax fraud suspects. Now I would use it on my own child. The bitterness of that thought tasted worse than the cheap cabin coffee. Around 8, the ship announced breakfast over the speakers. I washed my face, tied my hair back, and tried to arrange my features into something calmer. I was pouring a second cup when my phone rang. The screen said, "Ethan." My thumb hovered over the answer button. My heart beat slow and heavy like it wanted to drag the moment out. I pressed accept. "Hey, Mom," he said. His voice was bright, almost too bright. "How is my favorite cruiser? Are you in your cabin now?" There it was. First question. Location check. I let a pause stretch before I answered. "Yes, honey. I am in my cabin. Just woke up. I think the boat is still spinning in my head." I added a small laugh and slurred one word just enough. People underestimate how well an IRS investigator can fake fatigue. "Seasick already," he joked. "You should lie down. Maybe do not walk around too much. Those decks can be tricky." Tricky decks. Noted. I decided to set my first trap. "Oh, you are probably right," I said, lowering my voice. "Last night I nearly lost my balance by the railing. It scared me. It never happened, of course, but I said it like a confession. I knew how guilty people responded to unexpected good news." He went silent for a second. I could almost hear his brain adjusting. "You should stay close to your cabin," then Ethan said. "No reason to wander around. Just rest. Enjoy the view from your balcony." There. Balcony. I could see the word written in red letters in my mind. "I might do that after breakfast," I replied. "Right now I am just sipping coffee and trying not to fall over." Another soft laugh. Another fake wobble in my voice. "Good," he said. "As long as you are in your cabin and resting, I feel better. How is the room?" "Big balcony." He pushed again. He wanted details. He wanted to confirm the stage he planned for. "It is lovely," I said. 8th floor. Perfect little balcony. Close enough to hear the water when the waves hit. "Sounds amazing, Mom," he replied. "You deserve it. Just promise me you will not do anything risky." No late-night strolls near the railings. Every word went straight into the recording file. Evidence does not always shout. Sometimes it whispers through forced concern. "I promise," I said. "Now let me rest a bit." "The room is still moving." "All right, Mom. Love you. Get some sleep." I ended the call and stared at the ceiling. "Love you." The words felt like counterfeit bills. They looked real, but the paper was wrong. A minute later, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from Vanessa. "Good morning, Sandra, dear," it read. "Ethan told me you arrived safely. I am so happy you finally get to relax. Please take lots of pictures," the next message continued. "We want to see you smiling. You deserve this getaway more than anyone." Too sweet. So sweet it burned. Vanessa had never used dear with me in 4 years. She preferred your son and your house and your cooking. Now suddenly I was dear. I took a breath, then answered. "Thank you, Vanessa," I typed. "The ship is beautiful. I still feel a little dizzy from the movement, but I will be fine." I watched the typing dots appear and disappear. "Be careful," she replied. "Older people sometimes have accidents on cruises. Promise me you will hold the railing when you walk." My jaw clenched. There it was again. Railing. Accidents. Older people. I took a screenshot of the messages and saved them to a secure folder. Words can disappear, but records do not. After breakfast with Marjorie, I knew what I had to do next. Feelings were not enough. I needed proof from the ship itself. "I need to stop by the guest services desk," I told her. "Do you mind if we swing by the 3rd deck first?" "Are we complaining about the coffee?" she said. "Because I fully support that." "I just want to check my travel details," I answered. "Make sure everything is in order." The guest services area was bright and polished. Smiling staff stood behind computers. Screens showed excursion advertisements and spa offers. I waited in line and tried to slow my breathing. A young man in a navy vest waved me over. "Good morning, ma'am. How can I help you today?" "My name is Sandra Cole," I said. "Cabin 824. I want to confirm my full itinerary, including my return flight." He typed quickly, eyes moving across the screen. His brow furrowed. Never a good sign. "I see your 7-night Caribbean cruise," he said slowly. "Miami round trip. But I do not see a return flight attached." I felt my heart thump against my ribs. I kept my face neutral. "What do you mean?" I asked. "The package was supposed to include flights. Usually it does," he said. "In your case, the booking only shows a one-way flight to Miami. No return ticket is listed in the system." He turned the screen slightly so I could see. There it was. Departure flight. Blank space where the return should be. "Who booked this package?" I asked, even though I knew. He pointed at the record. It was purchased under the name Ethan Cole. Payment by his credit card. Marjorie stood a step behind me. I felt her hand touch my elbow lightly. Could this be a system error, I asked? Or did whoever booked it choose not to include a return? "It could be either," he said. "But right now, there is no return flight secured for you. I would like to purchase one," I replied. My voice was steady now. "Earliest flight back to Boston on disembarkation day." "Of course, ma'am," he said. "Let me check availability." While he worked, I felt a strange calm wrap around me. Shock had done its work. Now my training took over. He found a flight. I paid for it myself. He printed the confirmation and handed it to me in a small folder. "There you go," he said. "Now you are fully covered." "Thank you," I replied. "You have been very helpful." Helpful was not the word I wanted. He had just moved me from trapped to mobile. As we walked away, Marjorie leaned close. So she said quietly, "Your generous son forgot half the trip." "Not forgot," I answered. "Planned." We rode the elevator in silence. When the doors closed, she turned to me. "I did not want to scare you last night," she said, "but I should tell you something I saw." I met her eyes. "Go on." "After you went back to your cabin," she said, "I stayed in the lounge a while. That linen shirt man, your shadow, came up to the bar." My muscles tensed. "What did he do?" "He asked the bartender a very specific question," she said. He asked, "Hey, where is cabin 8, something on this floor? 820 something." I felt the blood drain from my face. 824, I whispered. "My cabin." "Yes," she said. The bartender pointed down the hall. He nodded like a man who had just confirmed an address. The elevator doors opened on our floor. We stepped out slowly. I unlocked my cabin and closed the door behind us. For a moment, I just stood there and listened to the quiet. Then I moved. I took out the small notebook I always carried. It used to hold audit numbers and interview notes. Now it would hold something more personal. On the first page, I wrote in neat letters, "Case attempted harm of Sandra Cole." Below it, I made columns like I had done 1,000 times before. Timeline, people, evidence, behavior. I wrote, 3 months ago, Ethan starts borrowing larger sums. 1 month ago, Vanessa suggests I travel or move. 3 days ago, Ethan brings cruise tickets. One-way flight. Morning of departure, overheard call. Phrases one-way ticket, accidents happen, life insurance. Day 1 on ship, man in linen shirt, watches me. Near fall at railing by teenager. Ethan call, checks location and balcony details. Day 2, guest services confirm no return flight. Vanessa texts about accidents with older people. Linen man asks staff about cabin 820-something. I underlined the last line twice. Finally, I added a simple statement at the bottom of the page. Not paranoid, pattern. I looked up at Marjorie. "This is how I survived 30 years at the IRS," I said. "Patterns do not lie, people do." She nodded slowly. "Then we treat this like a case," she said. "You are the investigator. I am your loud, charming assistant." For the first time since stepping on the ship, I felt something close to control. I could not change my son. I could not rewrite his choices. But I could document. I could prepare. I could build a file so strong that one day, if I needed to, the law would listen. Calls from home had given me more than fear. They had given me evidence. And an old investigator like me knows what to do with evidence. I entered the casino after dinner. The lights were warm, the music was soft, the room smelled of perfume and nervous hope. I chose a small slot machine near the corner. I needed distance and sight lines. Marjorie followed with exaggerated excitement. "Tonight I feel lucky," she said. "Or unlucky. Either will be entertaining." Her whisper carried a sharper message. "He is here. 3 o'clock." I kept my posture relaxed. I pulled the lever once and listened to the faux coins drop. Seconds later, a shadow moved beside me. "Evening, ma'am," a man said. His voice was friendly in the way cheap umbrellas are sturdy. It lasted only a moment. I turned. Beige linen shirt, dark sunglasses. On a ship, at night. "Hello," I said. My tone was airy and unsure. "I am Darren," he said. "I help older guests sometimes. Boats can be confusing." He gave a smile that tried to look helpful. Instead, it looked like a sticker peeling off. "Oh," I said, widening my eyes. "Thank you. I get dizzy easily. Everything sways." I let my hand shake slightly. Old IRS interview trick. Darren leaned in, pretending concern. "It is important to know your cabin well," he said. "Where is yours again?" Comedy flashed through me. He asked with the subtlety of a brick. I raised my finger toward my lips. Cabin. Oh dear. 8-something. 820-something. I shook my head like a confused grandmother. "I am horrible with numbers." "Oh," he said. "I can help you find it." He sounded eager. Too eager. I pretended to panic. No, I do not want to go near the railings. I almost slipped yesterday." His eyes sharpened. "There." Trigger word activated. "Railings can be dangerous," he said softly. "You must be cautious." His body leaned closer. "Predators do that when they smell fear." I made my voice small. "I am terrified of them now. I feel safer inside my cabin." I let my fingers tremble near the slot machine button. Darren nodded slowly. "Then you should stay close to your room. Better safe than sorry." He tried to sound gentle. He sounded rehearsed. Marjorie suddenly appeared beside us. She stumbled dramatically and fell onto Darren's foot. "Oh heavens," she cried. "These heels hate me." She gripped his arm like she needed support. Perfect distraction. While Darren steadied her, she tilted her head closer to his phone. She whispered, "You are welcome," before winking at me. I continued my act. "Maybe I should return to my room," I said. "If I walk around, I may fall over the edge." I said it lightly like a joke. Darren straightened. His reply came too fast. Yes, yes. Stay inside. Let me walk you. The word walk felt wrong, more like escort or deliver. I shook my head quickly. No, I think I can manage. The hallway feels safer. I gathered my purse with shaky hands. All right, he said. I will stay nearby in case you need help. He stepped back a few feet, still watching me. The act was over. The hunt had begun. I walked toward the exit slowly. I counted steps to calm my pulse. 20 steps. Turn left. Another hallway. Mirror on the wall. I saw Darren behind me. He pretended to look at artwork. His reflection betrayed him. Marjorie caught up breathing hard. He stepped aside to call someone. She whispered, "Follow me to the corner." We slipped behind a decorative pillar. Marjorie leaned just enough to hear. Darren's voice was low and sharp. "Yes, she is in cabin 823, he said. "Afraid of railings. Perfect. 823. Close enough to mine to prove intent. Close enough for a push." The word perfect slid through me like cold steel. Marjorie turned to me with wide eyes. "You heard that she whispered." "I did," I said. My voice was steady again. Fear had done its job. Now clarity stepped forward. "He thinks fear makes me easy," I said. "He is wrong." We moved away from the corner. I kept my spine straight, my steps measured. Darren ended the call and walked toward the casino again. He did not see us. He did not care. He thought his plan was already unfolding. I reached the elevator and pressed the button. Marjorie stood beside me. She crossed her arms tightly. "Are you going back to your cabin?" she asked. "No," I said. Something in my voice changed, something deeper. She nodded. "I hoped you would say that." The doors opened. We stepped inside. The elevator hummed softly as it climbed. My reflection in the metal doors looked older than usual, but stronger, sharper. When the elevator reached the 7th deck, I stepped out and turned right. "Where are you going?" Marjorie whispered. I stopped in the middle of the hallway. The ship rocked gently under my feet. I felt none of the fear from earlier. "I am done hiding," I said. "I am done pretending to be confused." I straightened my shoulders. "I need the captain." Marjorie touched my arm. "I am with you," she said. We walked toward the bridge entrance. Crew members passed us with polite nods. No one knew a quiet war was unfolding. I rehearsed my words in my head. Facts first, patterns next, evidence last, clear, concise, professional. Not as a mother abandoned, but as an investigator presenting a case. When we reached the security gate to the bridge hallway, a uniformed officer stepped forward. "Can I help you, ma'am?" he asked. "Yes," I said. My voice was calm and unshaken. "I need to see Captain Grant. It is a matter of safety." The officer studied my face and nodded. "Wait here, ma'am." Marjorie and I stood together in silence. My heart beat slow and certain. Behind the door, footsteps approached. This time, I was not prey. This time, I was not running. This time, I was ready to speak. I lifted my chin as the door opened. It was time to bring the truth forward. Captain Grant's office was colder than the hallway. The walls held photos of calm seas and smiling crews, but the air smelled like discipline. He stood behind his desk posture, straight eyes unreadable. The door closed softly behind us. "Please sit," he said. Marjorie dropped into a chair with the relief of a woman who hated heels. I remained standing. My pulse stayed calm, but my hands felt warm. Grant folded his arms. "My officer said you have a safety concern. I need you to explain from the beginning." I told him everything. The overheard call before departure, the missing return ticket, the man in the linen shirt, the phone conversation with Ethan, every detail, every phrase, every look. He listened without interrupting. No nods, no questions, only that fixed professional stare. When I finished, silence filled the room. Grant took a slow breath, then said quietly, "If what you say is accurate, this is not harassment, it is attempted murder." The word hit the air like a metal weight. Attempted murder. I had suspected it, but hearing it aloud changed something inside me. Marjorie exhaled loudly. "Well, She said that escalated faster than my second marriage. Her voice cracked the tension, but Grant's tone stayed even. "Mrs. Cole," he said, "do you have any written proof or recordings?" "Yes," I said, handing him my phone. I recorded the calls and saved screenshots of the messages. He connected the phone to his computer. The faint click of the cable sounded louder than it should have. He scrolled reading silently. After a few minutes, he looked up. "These messages are enough to raise concern. Combined with the man's behavior, I have grounds to act." He pressed a button on his intercom. "Security, please send Officer Diaz to my office." Within moments, a tall woman entered, uniform neat, expression sharp. "This is Mrs. Cole," Grant said. "She may be under threat from a male passenger name unknown, likely wearing linen." Diaz nodded. "I will review surveillance footage. We will identify him." Grant turned back to me. "Until then, we are taking precautions. I will assign cameras near your cabin entrance and hallway corners." Marjorie raised her hand like a student. "Can we add one pointed at the bar? That's where idiots usually confess." Grant almost smiled. "Noted, ma'am." Then he opened a drawer and pulled out a small black object smaller than a lighter. He placed it gently on the desk. "This is a silent alarm," he said. "Press it and security will reach you within 60 seconds. I stared at it. A tiny device no larger than my thumb, yet heavier than any necklace, because it meant someone finally believed me. Grant continued, "I want you to act normal. Attend events. Follow your usual schedule. Let him think nothing has changed." I nodded. "And if he approaches again?" "Do not confront him," Grant said. "Let us handle it. We will collect enough evidence to ensure he never tries again." He paused, then added, "Tomorrow night is gala night. Most passengers will attend. Crowded cameras everywhere. Perfect setting for observation." Marjorie leaned forward. "So like a sting operation with cocktails." Grant ignored the humor. "Mrs. Cole, will you attend?" "Yes," I said, "if that is part of the plan." "Good. We will have officers in plain clothes nearby. You just enjoy the evening." "Enjoy." The word felt foreign, but I understood his meaning. I needed to look like prey while they prepared the trap. Grant stood and offered his hand. "Thank you for coming forward. You did the right thing." When his hand clasped mine, it felt like a small bridge between chaos and order. For the first time since Miami, I felt the weight of survival shift from my shoulders to a team. Marjorie and I stepped out of the office into the brighter hallway. The light felt too cheerful for the words we had just heard. Well, she said attempted murder before dessert. I did not pack for this. Her dry humor made me laugh, a short, tired sound, but still a laugh. Back in our cabins, the ship's security crew was already at work. 2 officers installed a discreet camera above my doorframe. Another adjusted one near the elevator. The lens was small, almost invisible. Still, it made me feel both safe and exposed. Diaz returned with a tablet showing security footage. There, she said, zooming in, Deck 7 casino hallway, linen shirt. "We will track him." She looked at me. "Do not worry, ma'am. We have handled worse." I thanked her and closed my door. The alarm device sat on the nightstand, a silent companion. Later that evening, Marjorie knocked and entered without waiting. She carried something wrapped in tissue paper. "Mission prep," she announced. "Every sting operation needs proper wardrobe." She unfolded a navy blue gown, elegant but simple. "It will take 10 years off you," she said. "Maybe 15 if you add lipstick." I shook my head, smiling. I cannot imagine worrying about fashion tonight. "You can and you will," she said, "because fear makes you stiff. We need you relaxed, charming, radiant. Let him think you forgot." Her confidence was contagious. I touched the fabric. It was soft and cool. For a moment, I imagined a different version of the cruise, one that was truly a gift from my son. But that dream had sunk days ago. I placed the dress on the hanger near the mirror. "Gala night," I said quietly. "A stage and an audience?" Marjorie grinned. "And an undercover squad. It is like senior prom meets FBI. I laughed again, this time with more strength. Comedy, it turned out, was still armor. Before bed, I checked the alarm once more, making sure I knew how to press it. Then I wrote a single note in my journal. Grant believes me. Security installed. Tomorrow the game begins. I slid the notebook under my pillow. The ship rocked gently, humming through the night. Outside, the sea stretched endless and dark. Somewhere on that ship, a man in a linen shirt was planning another move. But now I was not alone. I closed my eyes and whispered to myself, I have a plan too. Gala night arrived with the kind of beauty that almost felt offensive. Crystal chandeliers glowed like soft moons. The string quartet played a slow jazz standard. Guests drifted in like bright birds. I stood at the entrance for a moment. Navy dress, low heels, hair pulled back in a simple twist. I barely recognized the woman in the mirrored wall. Look at you, Marjorie whispered beside me. You are about to arrest a man and still look graceful. That is multitasking. I smiled without teeth. I am here to survive, I said. Looking decent is optional. We stepped into the ballroom together. Waiters moved between tables with trays of champagne. The air smelled of perfume-roasted meat and polished silver. I felt the first eyes on me before I saw him. Darren. He stood near the bar linen traded for a dark suit, but still off by one detail. No tie, open collar, relaxed in the wrong way. His gaze found me. He smiled with careful warmth. Predators like to think they are charming. I pretended not to notice. I let my expression stay soft, almost distracted. An older woman enjoying one nice night. Under the music, under the laughter, there was another rhythm. The quiet pulse of a plan moving forward. Captain Grant had briefed us that afternoon. Move through the event as usual, he said. At some point, step out and head toward your cabin. Cameras will follow him, not you. Now, as I spoke with a couple from Ohio about grandchildren and weather, I scanned the corners. Plainclothes security blended with the crowd. Diaz in a dark green dress. Another officer in a simple gray suit. Marjorie leaned close and murmured, Linen man, at your 9 o'clock. He is watching you like you are the jackpot. I turned slowly, as if looking for the restroom. Darren dropped his eyes to his drink, then raised them again with practiced shyness. He was not clever enough to hide the hunger. After an hour, Captain Grant moved to the stage. He gave a short welcome speech about safe voyages and beautiful sunsets. His eyes brushed mine, once steady and grounding. When the band shifted to a slower song, I knew it was time. I touched Marjorie's hand. I will make my move now, I whispered. Do not get murdered on the way, she replied softly. That would ruin my night. I laughed quiet and real. Then I let my shoulders droop just a little. I placed a hand against my temple as if dizzy. A nearby waiter noticed. Ma'am, are you all right? He asked. Yes, I said. Just a bit tired. I think I will go back to my cabin. I felt Darren's gaze sharpen from across the room. He shifted, angling his body toward the exit. I walked out of the ballroom at a careful pace. Not too fast, not too slow. Enough time for him to decide to follow. The hallway outside was quieter carpet soft under my steps. At the elevator, I pressed the button for Deck 9, not Deck 8. Grant's instruction echoed in my head. Do not actually go to your cabin. We will have a monitoring room prepared. The doors opened. I stepped in alone. A camera in the ceiling blinked red. I lifted my chin toward it. Message received. On Deck 9, an officer met me before the doors fully opened. Mrs. Cole, he said quietly. This way. We moved down a side corridor used by staff. The air here smelled different. Less perfume, more metal and cleaning solution. He led me into a small, cramped room lined with screens and equipment. A ship's nerve center hidden behind a plain door. Marjorie was already there, perched on a folding chair, champagne flute still in hand. I told them I work better with bubbles, she said. They disagreed, but here we are. Diaz stood in front of a large screen showing a grid of camera feeds, hallways, elevators, stairwells, my cabin door. Deck 7 elevator just moved, she said. Ballroom to cabins. Zoom. One of the screens expanded. Darren stepped into the elevator looking absolutely ordinary. A man heading back to his room after dancing. He pressed the button for deck 8. My deck. "Show me corridor 8, Grant said from the corner. He had arrived before us, arms crossed, face set. Another screen enlarged. The hallway near cabin 823 appeared. Empty. Quiet. Waiting. I watched Darren exit the elevator on that floor. He glanced left, then right. No one in sight. He walked toward my cabin. My heart beat faster, but not from helplessness. This time, the fear carried an edge of righteous anger. Darren reached my door. He looked around once more. Then his hand slipped into his pocket and pulled out a small tool. "There it is," Diaz said. Pause camera 2. Zoom on his hand. Metal glinted under the hallway lights. He pressed the tool into the lock. Within seconds, the door opened. Breaking and entering, Grant said softly, "We have him now." Darren stepped inside my cabin and closed the door behind him. Another camera feed showed the interior view. We watched through the tiny lens installed earlier. He moved quickly, straight to the nightstand. He opened the drawer, pulled it fully out, checked underneath. "He is searching for medication," I said quietly, "something he can use to stage a fall." He went to the closet, pushed my clothes aside with no respect, checked top shelves and floor. Then he approached the balcony door. He unlocked it and stepped outside. The view changed to the balcony camera. Wind tugged at his jacket. He gripped the railing and leaned outward, studying the drop. He checked the height, the angle, the distance between bars. Measuring the story he will tell, I whispered, that I tripped, that I slipped, that the ocean took me. Diaz's jaw tightened. That will not be the story tonight. Grant gave a short nod. Team 1, move in, now. 2 security officers appeared on the hallway feed, moving fast but controlled. They reached my cabin door and entered in one fluid motion. Inside, Darren spun around, startled. On screen, his face froze in shock. The performance mask cracked. Sir, one officer said, "You are not authorized to be in this cabin." Darren lifted his hands halfway, then dropped them, trying to recover. "I must have the wrong room," he said. "They all look the same." The second officer pointed at the lock. "You picked this door. We saw you on camera." He tried to laugh it off. "There must be a misunderstanding. I was just checking on an elderly passenger. She was not feeling well earlier." From behind the screens, Marjorie snorted. "Bless his heart," she said. "He cannot even lie well under pressure." Diaz spoke into her radio. "Team, secure his phone. That is priority." On screen, an officer reached for Darren's pocket. He resisted for a moment, then stopped when they showed their badges. They retrieved a smartphone and a small bottle of clear liquid. Grant stepped closer to the monitor as they placed items on the desk for the cabin camera to capture. "Zoom on that," he ordered. The label on the bottle came into focus. A strong sedative prescription only, enough to make anyone unsteady on their feet. "Check his messages," Diaz instructed. "We need direct connection to the sun." One officer unlocked the phone using Darren's face. He opened the message app and held the phone near the camera. Text bubbles filled the screen. At the top, a contact name, Ethan. Below it, another Vanessa. The officer scrolled. We read every line in silence. "Make sure she goes near the balcony after the gala. Use the pills if needed. She gets dizzy easily. Remember, accidents happen at sea. And no marks. I do not want questions about bruises." My stomach clenched, but my mind grew strangely clear. This was no longer just suspicion. This was written conspiracy. Then another message appeared from Vanessa. "Once it is done, send photo of the report. We need proof for the insurance company." Beside me, Marjorie whispered, "She texted that, in writing. What a gift." Grant looked at me. "Mrs. Cole," he said, voice low, "this is the evidence law enforcement will love." On screen, the officers placed handcuffs on Darren, his face twisted between anger and fear. He tried one last line. "You do not understand. They promised me a lot of money. I did not think she would fight back." The officer simply said, "You can explain that to the police in Miami." I watched as they led Darren out of my cabin and down the hallway. For a brief second, his eyes flicked up toward one of the cameras as if realizing how completely he had been seen. I exhaled slowly. He had walked into a trap built by his own arrogance, and by a woman he thought would never notice the difference between a gift and a weapon. Grant turned off the audio and faced me. "Mrs. Cole," he said, "your son will not be able to claim ignorance. Not after this." I nodded. My voice came out steady. "Good," I said, "because tonight I am done being the woman they counted on to stay silent. I asked Captain Grant for one thing, a phone call. Not to the police, not to the insurance company, to Ethan." He studied my face for a long second. Then he nodded. "We will monitor the call. Say only what you feel safe saying." We moved to a quieter room near the bridge, a simple table, 2 chairs, a ship's phone with a steady green light. Marjorie sat with me, hands folded, eyes softer than I had ever seen. I inhaled slowly. Years of motherhood settled on my chest. Years of birthdays, scraped knees, school plays, whispered encouragements, and years of distance I had tried to ignore. I dialed Ethan's number. The ringtone felt like a countdown. 1 ring, 2 rings, 3. "Mom," he answered breathless. "Mom, why are you calling so late? Are you all right?" His voice was high, tight, almost rehearsed. I felt the lie before he finished the question. "I am safe," I said, "but I need you to listen." A short silence, then a forced laugh. "Of course. How is the cruise?" "Having fun." I closed my eyes. "How long did you plan it?" I asked. My voice stayed calm, measured, like I was discussing taxes. He breathed in sharply. "Plan what?" "Mom, what are you talking about?" "The one-way ticket," I said. "The balcony, the medication I do not take, the man you hired." He choked on his next word. What?" "Mom, no. No, this is a misunderstanding." "Is it?" I asked. "Then explain why he knew my cabin number. Explain why he watched me for days. Explain why he unlocked my door tonight." Ethan's breath rattled through the speaker. "Mom, listen. You have always been dramatic. You probably misunderstood something. You know you get anxious when you travel." I felt something inside me tighten. The old manipulation. The old way he tried to shrink my judgment. Not tonight. "Ethan, I said I spent 30 years in the IRS. Do you truly believe I cannot recognize intent?" A second voice cut in from the background, sharp, sweetened with poison. "Mrs. Cole," Vanessa said. "This is Vanessa. You sound stressed. Maybe you should rest and let Ethan handle things." I almost smiled. Her tone was the same tone she used when telling waiters to hurry, or when asking me not to touch her new couch. Fake concern layered over contempt. "Vanessa." I said, "Should I read your message aloud?" The line went dead silent. No breath, no shuffle, nothing. I continued. "The message about insurance. The one where you asked for a photo of the report. The one you sent at 10:42 p.m. Something clattered on their side. Maybe a phone slipping. Maybe guilt dropping inside her chest. That was not me," she forced out. "My phone was hacked. You sent it to a man whose number is saved as Darren in your contacts," I said. "You also wrote, 'Remember, no marks. We do not want questions.'" Ethan exhaled shakily. "Mom, please. You do not understand our situation." "I understand perfectly," I said. "You thought my death would be helpful. You thought the ocean would make it simple." Vanessa snapped back on the line. "Do not twist things. You raised him to be weak. You pampered him. Now you blame us for being realistic." Marjorie whispered. "Oh, she is digging her own grave now." I kept my voice steady. "Realistic," I repeated. "You mean desperate. Because of the debt. Because of the lifestyle you cannot afford. Because of the lies you told each other." Ethan's tone cracked. "Mom, please stop. For years I said I gave you both more chances than you deserved. I trusted you. I believed you would grow. Instead, you planned to throw me over a railing." Vanessa hissed. "It was not like that." "Then describe it," I said. "Describe what you told Darren to do." Absolute silence. I waited. 5 seconds. 10. 15. Finally, Ethan spoke. "Mom, I am so sorry. Sorry." A word that came too late. A word that had no weight after betrayal. I felt my throat tighten, but I kept breathing. Slow. Controlled. "Ethan," I said quietly, "do you understand that this call is being monitored? Do you understand the evidence is already in safe hands?" "I know," he whispered. I know I messed up. I know I ruined everything. Please, Mom, please let me fix this." Fix. The same word he used when he crashed our old car at 17, the same word when he dropped out of college, the same word when he missed his stepdaughter's graduation because of a poker game. But this was no broken mirror, no spilled promise. This was the kind of wound families never fully heal. Vanessa tried again. "Mrs. Cole, if we talk calmly, maybe we can reach an agreement. We can—" "No," I said. "I am done reaching." The line trembled with their breathing. Fear, shame, rage, all tangled. Ethan's voice cracked into a boyish plea. "Mom, please, please do not say it. Please do not cut me off." And there it was. The moment every parent hopes never comes. The moment when truth demands blood. I felt tears burn behind my eyes, but I did not let them fall. "You lost that right," I said. "You do not get to call me Mom anymore." A sound came through the phone. A small, broken exhale. Not quite a sob, not quite a gasp. A man losing the last piece of the person who loved him the most. I continued. "When I return to Miami, I will speak to the police. They will speak to you, and your future will depend on your honesty, not my forgiveness." Vanessa's voice rose frantic. "You cannot do this. You cannot walk away from your own family. This, I said, is not a family. Families do not plan funerals for the living." Silence stretched between us, long, heavy, irreversible. Finally, I heard a click. They hung up first, not out of anger, out of collapse. I set the phone down gently. My hand trembled once, then became still. Marjorie touched my shoulder. "Are you all right?" she asked. I nodded. "I will be." Grant stepped forward. "That call," he said, "closed the door on them. But it opened another for you." I wiped my eyes with the edge of my sleeve. "No," I whispered. "It opened the truth. And sometimes, the truth costs a family." When the ship docked in Miami, the morning light looked different, colder, sharper, like the kind of light that shows what people try to hide. Captain Grant stood beside me as the ramp lowered. His face was calm, but his jaw was set. "Mrs. Cole." He said, "The authorities are waiting. I already sent them the files." I nodded. There was nothing else to say. The sea had carried me home, but not to the same life. At the end of the pier, uniformed officers waited in 2 lines. Detective Ramirez stepped forward holding a folder. "Mrs. Cole," he said, "welcome back. We received the captain's report. You did the right thing." Behind him, 2 other officers stood near a silver SUV. Inside, through the tinted window, I saw Darren, cuffed, silent, head down. They opened the door for me to identify him. "Yes," I said. "That's the man who entered my cabin." Ramirez nodded. "Thank you. He has already started talking. He gave us names. Names. Plural. I didn't need to ask which. That afternoon, while I rested at the station, I heard the radio crackle. A dispatcher's voice came through. "Units 3 and 5 suspects located at Fort Lauderdale International, attempting to board Flight 281 to Cancun. Ethan and Vanessa, trying to run." I closed my eyes. There was no joy in knowing they were caught, only the dull ache of inevitability. By evening, they were brought in, handcuffed, disheveled, no longer the polished couple who once posed for Christmas cards in matching sweaters. Ethan's eyes found mine for a second across the hallway. He looked small, like the boy I once carried when he scraped his knees. But I reminded myself that boy had grown into this man, and choices have weight. 2 detectives led them to separate rooms. The sound of doors closing echoed through the corridor. Later, Ramirez came to sit across from me. He opened a folder thick with printed screenshots and bank statements. "We pulled their financials," he said. "Your son owes $150,000 in gambling debt, mostly to illegal online sites. Vanessa is $40,000 in credit card default." He flipped another page. "They filed a false life insurance claim last month. You were the insured party." I felt my pulse slow, not quicken, slow, like my body was processing betrayal as data, not shock. "They really planned it all," I said. "Yes, ma'am," Ramirez replied. "Text messages, payment to Darren fake accident form. It's airtight." He hesitated. "They asked for you," he added quietly. "I told them you didn't owe them a conversation." I looked at him and said, "But I owe justice the truth." The trial began 6 months later. The courthouse smelled of coffee paper and air-conditioned nerves. Reporters gathered near the steps, but I kept my head low. Inside the courtroom buzzed with the hum of whispered curiosity. People love tragedy when it looks like someone else's family. Ethan sat at the defense table wearing a suit 2 sizes too large. Vanessa stared straight ahead, her makeup pale against the white light. When the judge entered, everyone rose. I did too, gripping the bench in front of me. My hands trembled once, then steadied. The prosecution laid everything out with clinical precision: text transcripts, surveillance footage, bank records, insurance forms, even Darren's signed confession. The jury's faces shifted as the story unfolded: disbelief to disgust, pity to anger. When they called me to the stand, the courtroom fell silent. I swore in voice steady. Ramirez gave me a small nod from the gallery. The prosecutor asked Mrs. "Cole, did you recognize the voice on those recordings?" "Yes," I said. It was my son's voice. Ethan's head dropped. For a moment, I thought he might faint. Vanessa reached for his arm, but he pulled away. The defense tried to paint him as desperate, manipulated by Vanessa. But the evidence was too strong. Each message, each transaction, each calculated act undeniable. When the prosecutor asked, "Do you wish to address the defendants?" I took a breath. "Yes." I turned toward them. Ethan's eyes were red, swollen, full of what-ifs. Vanessa's chin trembled, though pride still sat heavy on her shoulders. "Ethan," I said quietly, "you were born into my arms, not into debt. You could have asked for help. You chose greed instead of truth." His lips parted, but no sound came. Tears rolled down his face silently. I looked at Vanessa. "You mistook calculation for intelligence. You mistook silence for weakness. You thought I would die quietly. But I am still here. And now the truth is, too." The courtroom stayed silent. Even the air conditioning seemed to pause. When I stepped down from the stand, my knees shook, but my back stayed straight. The years had bent me before. They would not break me now. After 2 weeks of testimony, the verdict came. Guilty. On all counts. Ethan received 15 years. Vanessa, 7. Neither spoke when the judge read the sentence. Only the sound of the gavel marked the end. Outside, reporters shouted questions. "Mrs. Cole, what do you feel right now?" I answered without stopping. "I feel the law doing what love could not." Grant met me on the courthouse steps. He had flown in from another cruise assignment to testify. "Justice served," he said. "Justice began," I corrected, "because justice is not the same as healing. One punishes, the other rebuilds." That night back home, I sat by my window with a cup of tea. The city lights shimmered against the glass. I looked down at the court document still on my table. My name, his name, the word verdict. I whispered to the quiet room, "Sometimes justice does not restore what we lose, but it stops the bleeding." And in that stillness, I finally let myself breathe. I sold my old house 3 months after the trial. It felt strange signing the papers, strange and freeing at the same time. That house had held decades of memories, but it had also held shadows, shadows of silence, shadows of pain I pretended not to feel. I chose a new place near a quiet lake, a simple apartment with wide windows and gentle morning light. From my balcony, I could watch ducks glide across the water. Every sunrise felt like a soft reminder that survival was not the same as living. Living required intention. My first week there, I unpacked slowly, not because I was tired, but because I wanted to decide what version of myself would move into this new space. The frightened woman from the cruise would not enter with me, only the woman who fought back. A month later, I walked into the Elder Support Center. It was a modest building with warm lights and volunteers who spoke softly. A counselor named Miriam welcomed me. She had kind eyes and a steady voice. "We help older adults who feel alone," she said. "Some suffer financial abuse, some physical, some emotional." I nodded. "I know those wounds," I said. She looked at me as if she already knew that. My first shift was simple. Make tea. Check on the seniors waiting for appointments. Sit beside them while they gathered the courage to speak. But soon the director asked if I would join a weekly workshop. "It is for people who survived family betrayal," she said. "We need someone who understands the aftermath." The first time I spoke to the group, my voice shook. But when I finished, a woman in her 70s held my hand. "You made me feel less ashamed," she said. I felt something inside me settle. A quiet purpose. Every Thursday became a new chance to lift someone who had been pushed down by their own children. I could not save Ethan from himself, but I could keep someone else from drowning in sorrow the way I once did. Marjorie visited often. She had become the friend I did not know I needed. We talked about everything except pain. She preferred joy. She once told me, "Life after 60 should be dessert, not leftovers." I wrote that down in my journal. One afternoon, she arrived with 2 cups of iced tea and a glossy brochure. "Look," she said, "a travel group for seniors, Canada in the fall, Maple Leaves trains hot chocolate. Let us be outrageous and sign up." I laughed in a way I had not laughed in years. "Outrageous for us means wearing matching scarves," I teased. She nudged my shoulder. "Exactly, live a little." We booked the trip that evening. 2 women in their 60s choosing adventure instead of fear. A week before our departure date, a letter arrived in my mailbox. The envelope was crisp, the handwriting neat. It was from Captain Grant. Mrs. Cole, it read, "Thank you for teaching me that courage does not always look like strength. Sometimes it looks like a woman standing alone but refusing to bend. You are one of the bravest people I have ever met. Our ship is safer because of you." I held the letter against my chest for a moment, not because of pride, but because someone had seen me, truly seen me. Another change entered my life in the form of a flyer posted near my elevator. Line dance for adults, 60 plus, Tuesdays and Fridays, beginners welcome. I smiled at the word beginners. At 66, every day felt like I was beginning again. The first class was held in a small recreational hall. About 20 seniors stood in loose rows. A cheerful instructor named Bonnie clapped twice. "All right, folks," she said, "let us shake the dust off those hips." The music began, something upbeat, something playful. We stepped left, stepped right, tapped our heels. I moved like someone learning how to inhabit her own body again. My rhythm was slightly off, my footwork uneven. At one point, I turned the wrong way and bumped into a man wearing suspenders. "Sorry," I said. He grinned. "A little chaos is good for the heart." By the end of the hour, sweat dotted my forehead. I had not smiled so much in years. In that little hall, moving with other people who refused to stop living, I felt something heal, something deep, something quiet. I stayed after class helping stack chairs. Bonnie approached me. "You dance like someone who fought to be here," she said. I nodded. Because I did. That night, back in my apartment, I brewed chamomile tea and sat by the balcony. The lake shimmered under the moon. My reflection appeared faintly in the glass. Not the same woman who left for the cruise. A different woman. A stronger one. I thought about the last words Ethan said on the call, about the pieces of family that would never fit the same way again. Pain does not vanish with justice, but it loses its power to control us. I closed my eyes and whispered the truth I had carried since that night at sea. I did not die on the ocean, but the weak version of me did. I opened my eyes again. The lake rippled. The world felt wide, and I felt ready. 66, I said softly. I am starting over. And if anyone listening to my story has ever been dismissed or underestimated, remember this: you are stronger than you think. I sipped my tea. Then, like every faceless storyteller before me, I spoke to the invisible listener. Thank you for staying with me to the end. If my story touched you, leave a comment with the city you are listening from. And subscribe for more stories of strength healing and the quiet victories we build with our own hands.